What? What?
I said, my Zoom is connecting, so I think I'm good.
Yes, you are, dear.
All right. Thanks for having my audio right there.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna hang up the phone.
Bye.
Bye. How many do we have registered?
I don't know. I'm in Zoom right now, so I can't.
I'll go peek. I'll go peek.
Okay, go peek.
I can't. Oh, you know what? It doesn't tell you when you're already in it.
That's what I thought.
Oh, 15. There's 15, not very many. How are we doing on time? All right, well, we got 15 registered.
All right. Okay, you can't do that. We have to mute you.
I won't crunch when we open it. All right, you got 4 minutes.
Okay.
Mac McLennan is asking for the first one. He said he missed it. And so I said it'll be loaded in the paid library, hopefully this weekend. I have 2 minutes to cut off, right?
Say what?
I have 2 minutes off the first version of this to cut off, right?
There's a little bit of it that needs to be cut off. Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on that tomorrow.
All right.
Get that up. All right, we got 4 minutes.
I'm gonna have to mute you. I don't know what you're doing over there.
Oh, I'll be quiet here in a second. All right, we are at 3 minutes.
Honey, I have a
Yes.
clock.
Oh, that was more for my benefit than yours.
All right.
I can't believe I made it in time.
I can't either.
It's a miracle.
Okie dokie.
First, I'm set up in the kitchen. I didn't buy any food at the airport. I basically had breakfast brunch over at my mom's and then left for the airport after I dozed off. And then I was like, crap, no dinner. All right. It's almost 8.
All right. All right, I'm gonna broadcast.
All right.
All right, we're broadcasting.
Good evening, and thank you for joining Trinity Security Allies. We're going to be getting started here. We're letting everybody get on. If you just hold tight for just a minute, we'll be getting started here around 8 or 8:01. Thanks for joining us tonight. Good evening and welcome. Thank you for joining Trinity Security Allies tonight. We'll be getting started here in about a minute. We're just going to let everybody get on and then we'll be ready to go. Good evening and thank you for joining us. We're going to be getting started here in just a few seconds. We're ready to go for part 2 of threat profiling. Thanks for joining Trinity Security Allies.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Jim Howard and Wendy Howard with Trinity Security Allies, where your church's safety is our ministry. Tonight, we're going to be talking again about threat profiling. Tonight, we'll be covering proxemics and geographics. I think that this is two of the ones that I really find fascinating. It's just one of these type of things that once you understand proxemics, geographics is kind of easy to catch a hold of, but once you understand proxemics, you really start to see different things in your daily activities and your life and when you're out. So let's get started. Once again, we're seeing a sign of the times, and I mean, it is one of those that I guess if I had just one word I could use for it, I would say that it's uncertainty. I was talking to Thomas King, the owner of Florida Firearms Academy today, and he told me that they did not have enough room for or instructors for all the people that wanted to get their concealed weapons permit. A friend of mine came to me and was just complaining about how the country is falling apart. And of course, I understand the concern. Trust me, there's nobody that doesn't understand what it means in situational awareness or threat profiling more than I do. But the thing that I kind of look at is that I look at the area that we live in. And I'm kind of boasting a little bit about Florida because, you know, this is why I live in Florida and not in Portland or Kenosha or Washington, D.C. And of course, we're all concerned about the shootings in Chicago and Baltimore. I feel better because, you know, the climate down here, where violence has broken out, it was quickly shut down. Now, if you were to pay attention to what is going on in this area, I have people that call me and say that all the guns are being sold out or ammunition is hard to find and different things like that. So like I said, it is a sign of uncertainty. With the violence that we see going across the United States, it's very hard for us not to feel a little concern in our little area or our home. Now, people in other states, I don't know what it is and how it is going on up there, but I do know that there are troubled areas and there are dangerous areas. But what we're going to talk about tonight is kind of being aware of how to look for things that might end up being a threat. You know, we must stay alert. In Matthew 10:16, Christ says to the disciples, I'm sending you out like sheep among the wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. And then, of course, Proverbs 27:12 says, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. And I think that that's the thing that we need to look at. We need to be prudent when we're out here, and we need to be watching for the danger and take refuge. Now, on July the 30th, I believe it was, we did our training on situational awareness, and we talked about warning signs. Then on August the 13th, we did our first training on threat profiling. Now, we talked about situational awareness. It is the ability to process and comprehend the critical elements of information about what is going on to the team with regards to the mission. In other words, the simple part about it is, it's just knowing what's going on around you. And then like I said, we talked about the warning signs, and we talked about things that we have grown up knowing that if we touch the red stove, we're going to get burnt. If we're around the hive, we're going to get stung. We're inundated with warning signs. They're everywhere. And of course, we understand that if we do specific things or don't do or don't follow those warning signs, we might end up looking like this guy in the triangle. Then on August the 13th, we did our first training on threat profiling. Now, of course, just a recap, this is a course that is taught the United States Marine Corps. It's called Combat Profiling and Tactical Tracking. We also use a lot of the information from Left to Bang, which is a book by Patrick Van Horn. Now, what Patrick did was he went in and just took all the different topics that we talk about tonight and just explained them just that much more. Now, of course, we're not going to call it combat profiling. We talked about this. We're going to call it threat profiling and bringing the threat to the Lord, because isn't that what we're all about? Now, threat profiling defined is a combination of time-tested, current trend, profiling, and behavioral pattern analysis. It relies on identifying typical human behavioral patterns, and this, of course, will allow you to detect a threat. Now, in today's world, this is training that is for everybody. In fact, tonight, we're going to change it a little bit, because when we talk about this, we're going to add outside things from the church, because everybody is concerned about what is going on. What would you do if you were sitting in a place that all of a sudden you just felt uncomfortable with? So we must educate our volunteers. We must educate you. We must educate myself. We are the first line of defense. And it's not only for the church, it's everywhere. We have to explain to everybody that they are an important part of this ministry or this mission, however you want to call it, that we have to provide training for everybody so that they know what to look for and know what to pay attention to. Because if they see something, they have to say something. We cannot be silent anymore. We have to be aware of our surroundings, and we have to make sure that if we do see something, we do say something to the local authorities. Now, this is one of the things that I kind of changed, because when we talk about the different types of people, I look at it as that there's three types of people, okay? And last week when we were talking about this and we were talking about threat profiling, I was kind of talking about this as church. But instead of saying come to worship, what I want to start saying is that it is those that come to participate. Because no matter where you are, whether it be in a store, whether it be in a mall, whether it be in a movie, people who come to participate, you kind of notice and see them and know exactly who they are right off the bat. It's one of these type of things of, as a person walks into a movie looking for their seat with popcorn and soda, you kind of think they're there to watch the movie. Now, if the person comes in and acts a little bit suspicious, we'll get into that in a minute. But the other thing that we have to look at is that there are people out here that are hurting, and we need to be aware of that. I said this in the Facebook Live this last Sunday night. The Center for Disease Control Director, Robert Redfield, said in a Buck Institute webinar that suicides and drug overdose have surpassed the death rate for COVID-19 among high school students. That's terribly sad. But there are people out here because of this COVID-19 virus and being shut up and being losing their business or not being able to work. Suicide hotlines calls are up. I mean, these type of things are very, very scary. Redfield went on and argued that the lockdowns and the lack of public schooling constitutes a disproportionately negative impact on young people's mental health. So I'm like everybody else. We need to get back out here and we need to be administering to those that are hurting. Then there's also, of course, what we look for, and that is the wolves. And we have to be careful with this. We have to pay attention to what is going on. And when I did this tonight, I just didn't do churches. I'm talking about wolves that are out here that are feeding on people that don't know we're either wolves or sheep, sometimes people say. We're either the hunted or the ones that are doing the hunting. And I think tonight what we're going to try to do is we're just going to try to distinguish things that you need to be looking for that would cause you to maybe take a step away from something to get you out of harm's way. So again, when we talk about threat profiling, we showed you this picture last week, and we just asked you to look at it. But it is a method of proactively identifying possible threats through human behavioral patterns, analysis, and recognition. Whatever the threat, there will be certain observable and measurable characteristics. And this does work on people, places, and events. Now, last week we talked about the threat profiling domains, and we talked about heuristics. Now, heuristics is one of those that is a mental shortcut that helps people make a decision and quick judgment. It is an approach to problem solving and take one's personal experience into account. Heuristics allow you to think through possible outcomes quickly and arrive at a solution that will work for your unique problem. Of course, we talked about these can be good and bad. But tonight, what we want to do is we want to get into proxemics. And proxemics is really something that is very interesting because if you want to be a people person, a people watcher, this is the one that you need, the domain that you really need to pay attention to. The proxemics is the one that really, when you really pay attention to the crowd, the people around you, what you're seeing, it really opens your eyes on things that you probably never have seen before. But it is the acts of betraying affiliations through the dynamics of proximity. Your distance to and from other people based on psychological, sociological, and physical principles. Like animals, humans move toward what they are attracted to and move away from what they fear. Proxemics change by cultures and individuals. Where we move and give people space, other cultures will continue to move forward, not as aggressive move, but more as a cultural norm. Some people that have a different feel of proximity, a different gauge of space, will move and you do what they call a kind of the proxemic dance. But proxemics is not just limited to the relationship between people. It can be applied to a person's relation to things, places, and events. In the first part of the slide, you saw a snake. How is that? What is your relationship with that snake? With me, I move away from them. I don't like them. Also, if you look at this picture of this concert here, I'm not a big fan of concerts. So I have a proxemics, a different style of proxemics that goes along with crowds. Now, proxemics happens in the unconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious levels of our mind. Anthropologist Edward T. Hall saw proxemics as part of nonverbal communication. So if you learn this skill, if you learn this domain, you can start seeing people communicating to each other without having to say a word. And it's really, really, like I said, interesting when you start to pay attention to this, notice this, and see this, and then in your daily lives, you'll start to see the communication that's happened between people. Proxemics can easily be observed from a distance. In fact, really, and when we talk about safety teams or at the mall or at a shopping center or something like that, it is the best way to observe these things, away from the danger if there's possible danger, but away from something that might make you feel uncomfortable or if you're watching the crowd to see how the crowd is responding to the event. Now, when we get into proxemics, they talk about the relative distances. Now, we have intimate space. And intimate space is generally for embracing, touching, whisperingly. Generally, this is only with the closest friends and like man and wife, husband and wife. It's one of these type of things that it is really limited to those that are close together. Some people like to use it as 6 inches. You know, they say, hey, if a person's within 6 inches of each other, there's usually an intimate relationship between them. Now, when I go out and I do training, one of the things that I do is I look for people that are holding hands, or maybe a husband that has put his hand behind his wife's back and is massaging the back. I look for those things because that tells me that these people are in a relationship. And this is an intimate space. Now, they will tell you that it can be up to 6 inches, which is what they call close phase, or 6 to 18 inches, which is a far phase. I just like to use my arm as a judge. If the hand or inside one arm's length next to a person, that tells me that this is an intimate space. Now, sometimes intimate space can be crossed without consent. We've seen this in kids, and now think about this for a second, or we've seen it in dominant males. If a person reaches over and touches a person, and you can kind of see the person slightly cringe or move away a little bit, that is a sign of dominance over a person. We see it sometimes with parents when they grab a hold of their kids. They're invading that intimate space because at that moment in time, it's not intimate, but it's a show of dominance. Now, what you do is you watch for the person's reaction when that person crowds that space. Violation of people's space happens all the time. And the thing about it is we try as human beings to be, we try to avoid being in people's space. But if you're at concerts or airplanes or crowded elevators, you get into people's space. And like I said, we try to kind of move away from it, but sometimes they don't. And when that happens, you really need to be paying attention, because what is that person's motive when they're not trying to give you their space? Now, the second thing that we talk about is personal distance. Now, personal distance is an interaction among good friends and family. It usually is what they say 1.5 to 2.5 feet, which is the close phase, or 2.5 to 4 feet, which is the far phase. I like to say it's a handshake or at arm's length. That is the personal space distance that we talk about. It can be different to different people, but I do know that if there's friends of mine and I'm talking to them, that's normally the space that we're talking about. Then we have the social distance space, or the social space. Now, this is distance kept by most people when interacting among acquaintances, not close friends, good friends, or family, but at a social event where you might go in and there be a dinner or some sort of activity going on to where you have that social space. Now, the funny thing about this, while I was looking at this today and going back over my notes, social distance has completely changed. Social distance is now, something that we talk about, socially distancing from the person. It is normally 4 to 7 feet, or that's the close phase, 7 to 12. Well, in today's world, they kind of want you at 6. So, most people are comfortable at this space, will give you signs, especially if they're comfortable, of eye contact with each other or nods. Their feet or torso is turned toward that person. Now, in social space, if you see two people that are socially spaced among each other, but you think they're with each other and they're not talking to each other, that could be a sign of an issue. That could be a sign of a problem. This is one of these, like I said, when we start to look at this, we can start to see things that might create a problem. Now, of course, we have public distance. Public distance is for public speaking. That's real easy, 12 to 25 feet. Or several bodies away from that person. Usually there's chairs set up, and then there's a space, and then the person is speaking. So those are easy to kind of see. But when we get into relative distance, the other thing that we need to look at is movement, because people move for a reason. A friendly movement is like a friend looking for somebody and finding them and moving toward them and making it either personal space or intimate space. But what you have to do is you also have to worry about the wolves maybe looking for victims, maybe hiding from a victim. If a husband is stalking his wife and he doesn't want her to know, he may be moving quickly toward the victim to harm the victim. So when we're standing there and we're watching distances, relative distances, and we catch somebody moving that we might not have seen before, pay attention to where this person may be going for. Like I said, it could be friendly movement, and there should be a smile on the face and their body is relaxed and they could be waving, but they're making their way toward that person that they just saw. But in a threatening movement, there's almost this movement of they want to be invisible or hide in plain sight. This is a part of the observation. Practice this when you're out in the public or at church. Walking in a crowd, no one has noticed you except to avoid you. That means that there's no problem with where you're at. But if you notice someone walking behind you that's matching your steps and speed and moving towards you, keep an eye on that person. It could be a possible threat. And this is if you see somebody else that is walking along and you notice that somebody is keeping the same pace, especially your pastor. Let's say that you're out with your wife shopping at a mall and you've been separated, but then you look and you see somebody that seems to be closing in on her, and it's a different type of style of movement instead of a friendly movement like they might know her. These are things that we need to start paying attention to, because they may be trying to grab the purse. They may be trying to do something that would cause some sort of incident. Watch facial expressions and body language when people are that, people watching the crowd finds that the people are looking for. I mean, watch all that you can see out there. Start to play a game. You're wondering what they're thinking. Most of the time you set up your baseline of what is natural inside the mall or inside a restaurant or inside the church. But then when you start to look for the anomalies, you'll start to see them. A person running from one place to the other doesn't mean that they're a threat. But if you see their facial expressions and you realize that there's anger on the face, or the body is tense, or it looks like they have tunnel vision on the person that they're approaching, that could be a possible threat. And these are the types of things that if we see something, we need to say something. Now, when we get into proxemics, we also have to look at what we call the proxemic pull. And that is the natural tendency for a person or a group of people to be attracted to other people, objects, or areas which are familiar and perceived as friendly to them. Kids running to an ice cream truck, that is a proxemic pull. As soon as they hear that music, that annoying music that is playing, children run toward it. Kids, grandchildren running toward grandparents, or little kids running toward their babysitters because they know them. These are what we kind of call pulls. People try to get close to celebrities and important individuals. People in a meeting sit in a group based upon who is familiar with whom. These are pulls. The anomaly might be waiting for somebody, but yet when they see that person, the pull happens. Children running to somebody they're familiar with and trust. Leaders of a group, everyone moves toward that person. Your pastor in your church has that pull. Different things, movie theaters, all these different, restaurants. The other day, Dunkin' Donuts had their pumpkin spice out. And oh my gosh, what a pull that had. The place right around the corner from us had a long line at the drive-in window. So these are things that cause what we call pulls. And what we're looking for people in the crowd that all of a sudden key on something and start toward that something. Is it friendly, or could it be possibly a threat? And we need to watch for those. Now, when we're watching for that, what happens if that person gets up on that person and it's not who they really wanted it to be, or they didn't want to meet that person? They do what we call the proxemic push. Now, just like the snake I showed here, or the building with the graffiti, or the concert, or even an upset man inside of a building, there's this push. Once it is a push that is a natural tendency for a person or group of people to move away from other people, objects, which are unfamiliar or perceived as a threat. This can also occur in a situation or an area where it's unagreeable, or do not want to associate with a specific person, group, people, or objects. When we talk about intimate spaces and we see dominance, where a person may reach over and touch that person on the arm or grab that person on the arm, as we said in domestic violence, that personal space has just been violated. And we need to be looking at the signs of the conflict. Did the person flinch? Did the person do a push? Did the person try to get away from it? A partner reaches out to another person and you see them jerk away. A restaurant where a woman pushes away from her date. And it doesn't really have to be like a physical push. If you're sitting there and you're watching a couple and they're really intimate and they're leaning into each other and they're talking and it seems like it's a romantic night, and all of a sudden she sits straight up and just gives him a look like she just can't believe he just said that her sister looks better in that dress than she does. That is a push. She just pushed off of him because he said something that made her totally feel uncomfortable. So when we have these situations where something makes us feel uncomfortable, we're going to push away from it. Now, what we have to be concerned about is what we call the proximity negative skill. The closer your threat is to you, the less skill is needed to harm or kill you. By observing a greater distance, a person increases the time between himself and given a potential threat, giving him more time to make a decision. Now, what we're talking about here is if you observe a threat, you need to keep that threat away from you. You need to be doing that push. But see, here's the thing that we have to be careful with. And people don't understand that a proximity negative skill doesn't have to be something that's right out in the open. People looking for mass casualties will look for places with the most proxemic pulls. Now, what does that mean? People want to be there. People want to go to malls. People want to go to churches. People want to go to restaurants. So when we talk about the proximity negative skill, one of those things that we got to be careful with is that it could just be somebody out of the blue that just appears on your radar that you see that is acting very strange and moving very quickly or moving into an area where there is a possible threat. So we have to really start watching the crowd. I mean, really start watching it. When people go to the mall, it's really easy to set up your baseline. But now start watching for the anomalies. And those are going to be those type of reactions when we get into proximity. How close you'll watch a group of people that get on the escalator. And of course, right now it's a little different. We're seeing this. People don't want to be near people. And it's really interesting. You can really pick it up right now because people who stand too close to somebody and maybe cough, you'll immediately see them start to move. I know one time I was in a Walmart, and this was before they really kind of pushed the mask, and I didn't have a mask on me, and a guy in another aisle coughed. I was trying to get out of the way. I didn't want to be around him. That was a push. It was a proxemic push right there because the guy just coughed. I mean, but that's what our mindset is thinking right now. We have these situations of where now, because of the virus, there's a lot more pushes going on out here than there were before. Unless you really know somebody, there's not a lot of pull. But the problem that we run into is that bad guys look for places that have pulls. Usually when there's a fire or when there's a disturbance or things like that, most normal people, you and me, we're doing a push trying to get away. And of course, law enforcement is trying to get there. But see, when these protesters start, that is a pull. They pull together. And then that's when we really have to be careful and be watching our surroundings and everything else. Now, when we get into the next portion here, we're going to be talking about geographics. In the book Left of Bang, Patrick Van Horn states that the first principle of geographics is that human beings and animals as well act with greater confidence in areas with which they are familiar. Home field advantage is very real. We have to set the baseline at a location to be able to determine the geographics. People who are familiar with geographics of an area will act, walk, and drive differently than persons who are unfamiliar. We live in Florida. We see this all the time. We have tourists and we have snowbirds. And most of the time, they don't know where they are, so they act and drive and perceive things completely different from us that live here and know where we're going. It's very easy to spot who knows the area and who doesn't. But in a church setting, somebody that is new to the church is going to walk in and ask you for directions. Go into your mall now and start watching people and see people who have that sense of geographics and know exactly where they're going. If they don't, they'll stop and look at an information sign and try to figure out which way they're going to go. If they're going to JCPenney's, it's this way. If they're going to Macy's, it's this way. If they're going to one of the restaurants, it'll be up there for them. But when we know where we're going, like me, when I go to shop, I go in to shop and I'm out. I'm gonna know exactly what I want and I go in and get it. It's like a combat mission. I go in, I get the clothes I want, and I get out. That is the way we act because we know the geographics of where we're going in. We've already put that into place. But like I said, you can start to see this when a person really truly does not know where they're at. But what you have to watch out for is those that walk into your church or your place of business or the mall that act like they own it, because they now may be pushing the boundaries of your safety team, of your building, of your business. They may be trying to see how far they can get into your business without you noticing them. So these are things you have to pay attention to. I tell people that when I go to concerts, especially when they're at churches, I wear a sports coat, a real nice shirt, nice pair of jeans, boots. And what I do, and most of the time I try, and it's not because I can afford it, that's why I don't go to that many concerts, but I try to get VIP tickets because I just like being out of the major, crowd. I don't like crowds. So I like to be kind of away from it. But I'll take this VIP placard that they give you when you walk in, and I will see how far I can go before somebody stops me. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where the band is, but I will start walking toward the area that seems to be closed off. And it's not very long before one of the people that work for the band or work with the organization will stop you and say, where are you going? And of course, I just laugh and say, oh, I was looking for the bathroom. I thought it was this way. And they will point me in the right direction. But if you have a person that walks into your church and heads straight for the children's ministry with not a child in tow, that person you probably want to talk to. But when we get into geographics, when we talk about it, we have these places that we call anchor points, habitual areas, and these are reference points and landmarks. Now, an habitual area is where most people within a given group or sect would frequent without reservations. Now, what that means is I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan. So if I want to watch a game that's not on TV, I would probably go to a bar that has the game on the screen, like you're seeing right here. These are usually public areas or places where most people in the baseline would feel comfortable and relatively safe. Restaurants that are open to the public, churches, malls. These are habitual areas. People just walk in. Criminals will use habitual areas to their advantage. What they do is they try to blend in. They may visit the location to get the layout of the area, and then they look for people that are not paying attention to what's going or looking for that victim. But they use it because normally when we go into these places, we're more concerned or more paying attention to what is in front of us, what we're eating, who we're talking to, than the surroundings around us. Now, an anchor point is a little bit different. Anchor points are where only certain individuals within a given group or sect would frequent without reservation. Individuals outside this group or sect would have reservations, feel uncomfortable, and generally avoid this area. Normally, that's normal people. A location at which an individual from a particular group or sect has established as their own and can associate and maintain a level of comfort. Anchor points can be good or bad. Now, when we talk about anchor points, we can talk about the home as being our home base. It must be a member of the family, or you have to be invited into the home. It's not like you can just walk in, you do that, then of course you're breaking into it. You're creating a criminal act here. You have a right to protect yourself. You might in your house have an habitual area, and that would be like the kitchen, the living room, or the bathroom, but the parents' room would probably be an anchor point. Well, only the parents would go into that room. Guests, friends, things like that would know to stay away from that room unless they were invited in as a tour. In church, of course, we have our children's ministry. That is an anchor point. That's a definite anchor point. Because if you do not have children, you do not work inside the children's ministry, you really shouldn't even be in there. In fact, if you are in there, we would probably look at you as a possible threat. Now, small groups, Bible studies can also be an anchor point because you kind of have to know what's going on and you come in and you visit, and so you're there. But as I said, these can be good or bad. Now, we can have something what we call a temporary anchor point. Let's say that we wanted to have an outside function at our house. We wanted to have a cookout. We would only invite friends and family. So it really would kind of be a temporary anchor point, like if we did it at a block party. We're not inviting the whole neighborhood or the whole area. We're just inviting those that are on the street. So it'd be like a temporary. But when you see riots and violence in certain cities, this causes these areas to be an anchor spot for those creating the disturbance. Now, if the police move in or they leave and it breaks up, it goes back to an habitual area. So you must be careful in your anchor points, because when we get into there, we start to feel that nobody can get us in our where we're safe at our anchor points. When we're in our Bible study, if we're in church, we get into these mindsets that we're safe here. Look, we get into our houses and what do? We lock the doors, we turn on the alarms, and we take a step back and go, we're safe. Everything is secure. But what we really have to do is make sure that we still pay attention to what is going on in our environment. If all of a sudden that there's break-ins in our area, make sure that we lock our car doors, because even though we're safe inside our house, our car is really truly an anchor point also, because it's ours and nobody should be in it but us. So we have to watch for these things. We cannot let just somebody walk in. A good example of an anchor point that turned deadly was Charleston, South Carolina. This was a Wednesday night Bible study, and the shooter showed up and was invited in, but really he was out of place. He was completely an anomaly to what was going on there. There was multiple red flags as it was going along, but he went into an anchor point because they trusted him. They wanted to worship with him. You know, you cannot be angry at those that were the victims. They were doing God's work. They were witnessing to this person who truly, in my mind, was definitely hurting because sin had gotten a hold of him and he was being destroyed. But yet he took advantage of the anchor point and killed 9 innocent people. So we have to make sure that we're very careful when we get into our anchor points. Our anchor points and also our habitual areas. We have to make sure that we are still paying attention. We have to be in condition yellow. I don't mean that we have to be sitting there with the guns in the hand and waiting for everything. We just have to be paying attention to it. My PowerPoint decided to take off on its own. So, Wendy, I'm going to open it up. We have some questions, discussion.
As of right now, we have no questions. So if you have a question, please put them in the Q&A and we'll get to them. We'll give you about 30 seconds to type or let us know that you have a question.
Well, something that we can discuss while we're waiting for some questions, if anybody has one. Next week, we're going to put 3 of them together. We're going to talk about atmospherics, kinesics, and biometrics. Kinesics and biometrics are something that is just nothing but more than body language, and it is really an interesting study, and it is one that you have to really pay attention to and have to work with. It isn't something that you can do right off the bat, but the best person that you can work with, especially those that are married, that's the kinesics. That's just your body language, because there's so much body language that goes on between a couple that is nonverbal at all. So this is where you can start thinking about that. But next week, like I said, the domains we'll be talking about is atmospherics, kinesics, and biometrics.
Okay, as of now, we still have no questions, so let's go ahead and close it out. If you have questions that you think of later, just let us know.
All right. Just want to let you know that we are always out there at Facebook Live on Sunday nights. We talk about things that are going on this weekend. We're going to be talking more about the conference that's coming up in October. And we're going to be talking about the people that are out that are going to be coming and speaking. We're really excited with the list of people that are out there. This is going to be a good year. I mean, every year has been good, but this is just one of these I'm really excited about because of some of the things that are going to be spoken about. So come out this Sunday night at 8 o'clock, and I'll be talking about the conference. We also have our YouTube page that is out there, and this has our resources. Now, this has our training. We do have a paid site, and we kind of have to do that to help us with the ministry. So Wendy and I are going to talk about this because I know a lot of people can't come out on Thursday nights, and I don't know, we're going to have to talk about something because we really do feel like this training is very important. So like I said, let us talk about it. Also, go out if you ever have a chance at YouTube, subscribe to us, our Training Security Allies, please subscribe to it. It does help us out. Also, my friend out there, God Logic Project, Kevin Haggerty, has some of our interview where he's interviewed me and we talked about different subjects. Go out and look at his stuff. It's really good. He just had a great one that I started it and can't wait to finish it out. We do have free resources out there. We have our putting together safety plan, developing a safety team, carrying weapons in a church, and Sunday morning what to look for. I will tell you that we want to put more out there, but it's just been an unusual summer. Everybody has been affected by this, and I know that I'm speaking to the choir, but we kind of took we took almost like 20 days that we did some traveling, and we went around the country. We went to Texas, and we haven't put any more out there as far as the free resources, as far as the ebooks, but we will be working on those very shortly. It's just that we're just trying to kind of regroup. Wendy had a brother-in-law that passed away, which was completely unexpected. And so that kind of threw us behind again. But she's back home. I don't see us going anywhere until October at this point in time. So we're really excited about getting some more of this stuff out there. Okay, ways to support us. We have prayer. Please always pray for us. We love the prayer. There's memberships for churches, $125 a month, or it would be $100 if you pay for the year. There's online membership, $25 a month. We have 20 for a month through 513, but I think that's kind of gone. It's 20 a month. This is weekly online training and access to the video training library. And it also gives you one ticket to the church safety conference. We also do training. And we're going to be, October, we're going to be back up in Iowa. And of course, we are always looking for people that would like to give us donations because we'd like to make this as affordable as possible to where we could go to any church in the country and be able to give them training because there's people back out here that are help funding this ministry. Like I said earlier, it's a change of the times. It is really crazy out here. And more people. I just started doing concealed weapon classes again, which I'd kind of walked away from. It was one of those things that we really kind of felt like it was a little bit of, a distraction, but it ended up that friends and family started contacting us and really wanted us to help them out. So we did. We started doing this again, but I cannot say this enough. If you are going to carry, you need some sort of protection. And USCCA we are an affiliate of theirs, and they treat us really good. They treat us excellent. And so, but I say this right now, they have excellent training online. They give you books, they give you videos, they give you all the sorts of things that you can look at. Their training is everywhere online, and it's really a good organization. Now, you would not drive your car without insurance. Why would you carry your weapon without having some sort of protection? If you're interested in this, go to our webpage, look for our logo that says USCCA, click on it, and it'll take you right there. And if you sign up, like I said, we're an affiliate and they take really good care of us. Are there any questions, dear?
There are no questions, but just to remind everybody, USCCA will be at our conference. They're going to be talking about the gray area when it comes to church security. So just an FYI.
Well, I am glad that everybody completely understands proxemics and understands geographics. So I will respect your time And if there's nothing else that you have, then we're going to go ahead and call it a night. So be
So
careful.
we just have a couple of comments thanking us. Excellent training, and you guys rock. So thank you, thank you, Russell, and thank you, Marshall. We really appreciate that.
Yes, we do. I can't wait to do this in person, though. Again, I'm so looking forward to it. I sit behind this screen, and it's a little. I just like being in person. I like to see the people I'm talking to. So I'm really looking forward to that. Hopefully we're going to, well, of course, we've got the conference coming up, which I'm really excited about. And hopefully we'll be having some other things where it'll be free and we'll get people in so we can get back started again. If there's nothing else, please be safe out here. Please start to be aware of your surroundings. Please start using these tools that we're giving you, that you can start looking for those things that could be a possible threat to you and your family or your business. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us. Every email that I send out, my telephone number is at the bottom of the email. Every email Wendy sends out, her telephone number is there. We are always here for you. Please reach out, and God bless you. Be safe, and God bless this country. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.